You guys ever heard that saying that you should just buy real estate, don't worry, because it always goes up, right? It never goes down in price. Well, clearly we saw that that was not the case during the 2008 housing market crash, but we don't even have to look that far back in the past to actually see a time when home prices have been falling substantially. In fact, we can see that right now today. And I'm going to show you guys several places in the United States where this is happening right now. But really the worst offender with this is New York City, guys. And the reason why I think this is interesting is because it's one of the most expensive markets in the entire country, but they have been experiencing a major housing crash, okay? Especially Manhattan over the past 5 years. How do I know this? I went on ReVenture app and I looked at how much the real estate has gone up or down over the past 5 years, which is a great measure because it's basically pre-pandemic until now. The numbers are June 2019 through June 2024, and you can see on any given part of the country, all the way down to the zip code, how much prices have either gone up or down in your zip code, in your county, whatever, right? Well, when you look at Manhattan on a map like this, by zip code, you see some astonishing figures. And when you see zip codes where the home growth value has gone down by 44% over the past 5 years, or 42%, 36%, 32%, 30%, 26%, these numbers are crazy, guys. That's how much the price of real estate and these zip codes of Manhattan have gone down over the past 5 years. Not up, gone down. 44%, 30%. These numbers are higher than what we saw during the 2008 housing market crash. And one reason why this is so interesting is because typically in big metros where there's a lot of job and a lot of desirability for people to live, the price typically only goes up. You know, it doesn't really go down by much. Yeah, everywhere saw somewhat of a correction for the most part during the 2008 housing crash. But in general, you know, that's why people give you this rule of thumb with real estate. Oh, don't worry, just buy it because in the future it will go up. Well, anybody who believed that over the past 5 years in Manhattan and maybe even further back, they were duped. They were lied to. And here's the funny reason I think the New York City example is such a good one to start off with, because my wife was watching this show on Netflix the other day. I don't know what it's called, like Selling Manhattan, whatever. Just like one of those real estate shows where they show, you know, all the real estate deals that people are doing in different cities, you know, and this one was in Manhattan. And Ryan Serhant is the star of the show. They showcase his agents and his brokerage and all of that, right? And they're talking about how, oh, if you buy the place today, then it's going to be worth a lot more. Oh, that's a giant lie, guys. All you have to do is look back 5 years and people who bought then and see where things are at right now. You know, and this show showcases a couple of things. Number one, how clueless, or they just don't care, real estate agents are about their local market, guys. All they care about is selling you a house. They don't care if the market's going up or going down, or if prices are down 44% over the past 5 years in the neighborhood you're looking in. They're still going to tell you stuff like this. And I know it because I experienced it myself for the 13 years I was doing real estate full time. But also, you can even see it on TV shows right now in 2024. Literally, these agents are selling real estate in a crashing housing market and telling the buyers that if you buy today, that in 5 years, you're going to be happy that you did. What? Who is listening to these people? Now, yeah, sure. Are there some examples that they show on the TV show that, oh yeah, they bought the place a few years ago and now they're selling it for more? Of course. There's always going to be certain pockets and neighborhoods of desirability, even within a crashing market like Manhattan, where people will still pay more for the place than what they bought it for 5 years ago. That's never going to change. But I'm just so tired of people saying how, oh, you know, real estate's never going to go down and it's only ever gone up. And this is proof right now that that's actually not the case. And it's not just in Manhattan either. In fact, right across the bay here in San Francisco is another example. Now, the examples aren't as extreme, but still, over a 5-year period, there are still zip codes in San Francisco where prices have come down almost 25%, 20%, 17%, okay, 16%, 12%. These are really bad numbers, guys. Over a 5-year period, nobody should be seeing the value of their home lower than it was 5 years ago. One thing a lot of people are going to say right away, these are the cities that are being destroyed across America, right? With all of their progressive ideas and all of this that's ruining it. And I have no doubt that's playing a role in this. You cannot have crime and homelessness run rampant throughout a city to the point where businesses close and people feel unsafe and how these places handled the pandemic and expect everybody to still want to live there. Especially with all the remote work opportunities that came after that. A lot of people have realized that they don't like living in these cities anymore. And I don't blame them. Even though San Francisco is right across the bay, guys, I wouldn't want to live there. Although this time I do plan on going over there and doing some videos for you guys. Last time I couldn't make it. There just wasn't enough time when I was here. But this time I'm going to be here for a while. So I'll definitely be heading over there at some point to make some videos. And really, it's not just these two places. I think San Francisco and New York are the two prime examples of these home prices going negative over a 5-year period. But it's also happening in other states across the country, guys. Like if you look on this map here, you can see there's a lot of places in North Dakota where this is happening, a lot of places in Louisiana where this is happening. So it's not just a big city problem, and you can say that those places don't have all the same issues with the homelessness and the crime and the drugs and all of that, nowhere near on the scale anyways that these cities have, but yet they're seeing their 5-year appreciation go negative now. It's depreciation. Well, now that we've smashed these cities hard enough, let's switch our focus back to Florida. Let's talk about some Florida real estate and what's going on over there, okay? And clearly right now, Florida is just in this perfect storm, nightmare scenario with everything when it comes to how much insurance has gone up, how much property tax bills have gone up for people that have recently purchased their place, with how much the prices have gone up, the interest rates. Everything is just making it so expensive to live there now, almost to the point where it's almost as expensive as here now, guys. No joke. Here we have a waterfront home listed for rent for $24,000 a month. And if you think that's a lot, just wait a couple minutes till we see the next house for sale just down the street. And they've been having this place for rent since June 11th, so it's not that old of a listing, but it is still available for rent. And they purchased it back in 2021 for $2.65 million. Current property tax bill is $28,000 a year. Not sure if these people are actually making a profit on this place or not, but hey, that's not my problem. I could pull up some examples of listings right now in the video and show you guys houses that are for sale and for rent in Miami Beach where I live that are just as expensive, if not more than expensive than these houses here. But when we look particularly to places like Orlando and Tampa, about 21% of all of those home purchase agreements that were signed just got canceled in June, guys. So you're seeing a lot of buyers in these areas get cold feet with their purchases and second guess and say, maybe I don't want to buy this house here in Florida anymore. And in fact, this is the highest rate of home buyer cancellation in the entire country right now. Orlando and Tampa, once hot markets from the pandemic that, people just couldn't get enough of, people bidding over asking price, no inspections, no contingencies, just give me the house. Now people are canceling the deals at the highest rate in the country. Right now the national average for cancellation rates is at 15%, and these areas it's 21%. This house is for sale just a few doors down from the rental we just saw for a whopping $15.7 million. So your house payment would be $105,000 per month compared to $24,000 a month. Yeah, the house is bigger. It's 5-bedroom, 4.5 bath, but this is an absolute joke, guys. Like, to show you the difference between renting around here versus owning is just absolutely insane. It is so much cheaper to be a renter around here. This house was purchased back in 2019, just before the pandemic, for $6.5 million and only $1.3 million during the last housing crash, and now they want 3 times as much for this house. And they started off asking almost $18 million, so
big price reductions already, along with big property tax bills at $80,000 a year, which is probably going to double, maybe even triple for the new owner. Who can afford stuff like this?
Now, according to a Redfin real estate agent that they talked to in this story, he says that the reason that you're seeing so many cancellations right now is concerns over affordability, guys. And you know, I've gotten a lot of flack on the channel over covering the same thing over and over. Oh, we've already said that a bunch of times, of how expensive the insurance is, how expensive the property taxes are. We're tired of hearing it. Well, guess what? Now people are starting to see it in real life. They're starting to experience this to the point where they don't want to buy the house anymore. And you know, you have to realize too, if you're somebody who regularly watches my videos, that not everybody watches every video, and there's always new people that come to the channel. So even if I talked about something 2 or 3 months ago and I'm talking about it again today, doesn't mean that everyone who's watching has seen this. Okay, so you have to have some patience and realize that some people are hearing this stuff for the first time. And that's part of the reason I repeat myself here on the channel, but also because I want people to have it ingrained in their mind of how much of a problem this is if you are a regular listener. So what this real estate agent said is they're seeing a lot of deals that are being canceled literally at the last minute for the most minute reasons, okay? And the buyers will often back out during the inspection period because they find something they don't like, but affordability is really the underlying issue. And I wonder how many of these people actually even get an insurance quote before doing the inspection or anything like that to see how expensive it's going to be, guys. Because I think some people are going to be flabbergasted when they get their insurance quote for their new Florida home. You know, that is probably the biggest driver of unaffordability in Florida right now, even more than the prices and interest rates. And buyers have the right to back out of these contracts for whatever reason they want to in the inspection period. It's not like they have to give some kind of bogus excuse. They can just say, I don't want to buy your house anymore. They don't have to say it's because I'm afraid I can't afford it. But if that's what real estate agents are telling us because they have private discussions with their clients, then clearly this is a problem. And this, of course, is all happening at a time when in Florida, the inventory levels are skyrocketing, especially in areas like Orlando and Tampa. And I think that can also scare buyers too, because when you're in an area where you see a lot of listings for sale, a lot of them have price cuts and a ton of new listings coming up week after week, it can kind of give you cold feet as well, thinking, hey, am I making the right decision here? Is there going to be a better deal come along in another month or two from now with all the new inventory coming online? That's the other psychological trick when it comes to home buying, is that everybody thinks as soon as inventory goes back to pre-pandemic levels and interest rates come down, then people are going to flood back into the market, guys. But think about the reverse psychology, right? When there's a shortage of homes, people are picking them up and paying over asking price because they're afraid they're never going to be able to get one, right? Well, the opposite is true when the inventory comes flooding back online and suddenly there's, you know, dozens, if not hundreds of options to choose from that fit your criteria. It can kind of make you feel like a buyer, which house should I buy? You know, maybe I'll get a better deal tomorrow or next week or next month or maybe even next year. And I think Florida is showing signs of this first before any other market. Just like we were the state that saw the biggest influx of people come in during the pandemic. We saw, you know, the home prices shoot up the highest amount percentage-wise compared to any other state. And now you're seeing it all unfold in reverse. And just like we were the first ones to see it go up, we're now the first ones to start seeing it come back down. And I think other places are going to follow suit at their own respective pace, of course. You know, in Florida, home prices went berserk and essentially doubled in most cases. So there's a lot of room for prices to come down. But say if you live in a market where prices only went up 20%, which is still a lot, I'm not saying it isn't, then there's just less room for those prices to come down in your area. Check it out, they got these little steps here to go down by the water. In case anybody didn't see, got my awesome Metallica shirt on today, representing. But I think it's important to understand that this can happen on a relative basis in a market near you. You might not have seen crazy price appreciation, but nonetheless prices did go up. You can still see prices come down as inventory starts to build. And as if the real estate market wasn't already on shaky ground enough, this whole new way of real estate commissions being paid is going to shake things up even further. And I want to go into a little more details on this. Something else I've talked about in the past, but there's some new stuff to mention here that you probably don't know. Now, some home sellers, once the new rules go into effect on August 17th, have no intention of paying a buyer's real estate agent ever again. And that's fine. You're not obligated to. But keep in mind, number one, that typically homes like that do take longer to sell. You can do whatever you want, but just realize it will probably sit on the market longer. But once this new law goes into effect starting August 17th, listing agents are no longer going to be allowed to offer a buyer's agent fee on the MLS. And what that means moving forward is that agents right away up front won't know if there's a commission being offered on that property or how much, and it will help eliminate them steering buyers into listings that give higher or lower commissions, okay? But the flip side of that is, as the buyer, you now have to sign a buyer-broker agreement with a realtor anytime you want to go see a property for sale. And guess what? If the house that you want to buy is one of the houses that the seller says, I'm not paying a commission to the buyer's agent, well, then it's going to be on you, the buyer, to pay that commission, okay? And here's the other problem. A lot of buyers are already strapped for cash, right? They already barely have enough money to buy the house. Most of them don't have an extra $15,000, $20,000, whatever the real estate commission would be, to pay their real estate agent too. So this can have a tremendous downward pressure on home sales if buyers are forced to foot the bill on too many listings. Now, since all buyers are going to have to sign this new buyer-broker agreement, I want to go over some of the changes to the buyer-broker agreement that they made, at least in Florida. I can't speak for all states, but here's some of the key changes that they made. But before I go over those changes, I want people to understand something. I watch a lot of YouTube channels, and I've seen a few people on YouTube say that, well, I'm not going to, use a buyer's agent. There's no way I'm going to pay a fee to a buyer's agent to go see properties, and I'm definitely not going to sign an exclusive agreement with them, okay? Thinking that there's going to be some way to circumvent this. I've heard things like, oh, I'm going to have my attorney send a letter to the listing agent, and then I'm going to go ahead and tour properties like that. People who are saying stuff like this, guys, have no clue how the real estate market works or how buying a house works, apparently, because real estate agents won't be allowed to do this by law anymore. If you want to go see a house with a real estate agent, even if it's the listing agent of the property, you're going to have to sign a buyer's broker agreement for any potential property you want to see. The only way that's not going to happen is if you, the buyer, go directly to a house that's for sale by owner and buy the house and look at the house directly with them. If real estate agents are cut out of the picture completely, then of course you don't have to sign an agreement with anybody. But moving forward, if you want to see a house like this one we're about to walk by that has a real estate sign in the front yard, you have to contact a real estate agent. It doesn't have to be the listing agent, but it can be. And you're going to have to sign an agreement with them, basically stating that if you're going to buy that house, how much commission that you're going to pay them, if you have to pay them. There's people who think that they're going to be able to circumvent this somehow, that they're not going to have to pay their real estate agent for going and buying a house. But that's actually not going to be the case. Only if the seller is offering a commission, then as per your buyer-broker agreement, you may not have to pay your real estate agent anything. But on the flip side, because you want them to show you houses regardless of what the commission's being offered, and say the house that you love, that you find, is offering no commission, well, guess what? The bill is going to be on you most likely. But some of these YouTube channels that have said, oh, I'm never going to sign an agreement with the real estate agent to go see properties, that's fine. But you're probably not going to be looking at any properties then, because no one's going to be allowed to show you anything without that agreement. Okay, that's how this is going to work starting on August 17th. Okay, and some of the changes that they made to the buyer-broker agreement form in Florida are things like this. First of all, they disclose in there that broker commissions are not set by law and they're fully negotiable, which has always been the case, but now it's going to be right in your face in the agreement that that is the case. So you can agree with your real estate agent whatever kind of compensation package or plan you guys both deem to be fair and acceptable. There's also a provision in the contract now that states the compensation received by the buyer's broker from a seller or seller's broker will reduce any amount owed by the buyer under the agreement. A similar provision was included in the previous versions of the agreements, but has been revised to provide clarification. So that's going to work just like I said. You, as the buyer, are going to have to agree to pay your real estate agent a certain amount, whatever that is, okay? Whatever you guys agree to. And let's say it's $10,000, okay? Let's just throw a nice even number out there. And say you buy a house and the commission that's being offered is only $5,000. So the agent will get that $5,000 from the seller, but you as the buyer will now be responsible for paying the additional $5,000 at closing. And there won't be any way around this. This is something you're agreeing to. It's a legal form. So at closing, if you want to buy the house, you will have to pay this money. There's also another provision stating that if you pay your real estate agent or broker a retainer fee, that this is in addition to the compensation that's being offered. Say you have an agent that you want to work with, but they won't even talk to you for less than $1,000, right? I don't know. So if you pay them that $1,000 just to work with them and show them properties, that's in addition to however much you promise to pay them in the agreement. There's also going to be a section in the contract that says the buyer agrees to make a diligent, good faith effort to perform the contract terms of any purchase agreement entered into by the buyer and to close on the sale of any property the buyer contracts to acquire. This probably is going to prevent you from using real estate agents, right? Like you can't just use people to go see a couple of houses and then just be wishy-washy and not really do anything. I don't know how this part of the contract would really be enforced. My guess it probably won't be, but that's what it says. Now the default length of these agreements is going to be 30 days, at least in Florida, called the protection period. So when you sign one of these, unless you change the dates or how long or how short this is supposed to be, the default is 30 days. So you need to know this as a buyer. Say you really want to go see a house, but you don't want to commit to working with somebody. You need to make sure that that agent that you're going to go see the house with is willing to lower this protection period to like 1 day. You know, hey, I'm going to show you houses for 1 day, or maybe I'll show you houses for the weekend, and you have to commit to me at least for that amount of time. But the default is 30 days if you don't change it. And if you don't, then you're going to be stuck with that real estate agent for at least 30 days. So that's important. I took a quick screenshot of the compensation agreement from the seller to the buyer's broker, guys, just to give you guys an idea of how this would work. So if a seller wants to still offer a commission to a buyer's agent, it will look something like this. And it pretty much lays out how much is going to be paid by the seller, and the same will be true for the buyer. And actually, to help buyers moving forward, to make sure that your agent that you hire and sign up with isn't steering you into properties that are only paying higher commissions, there's actually going to be a clause in this agreement that's not going to let them do that, okay? According to paragraph 5 of the compensation agreement, it says here that brokerages cannot filter listings, all right? Brokerages cannot filter out or restrict listings that are communicated to customers based on the existence or level of compensation offered to the cooperating broker or the name of a brokerage or agent. This is now going to be hard and fast against the rules for real estate agents to do this moving forward. And if you find out that they are doing this, then they can be in trouble. You can file an ethics complaint against them. You can file a complaint with the local real estate board, and there's probably going to be some repercussions for them moving forward. But here's one of the most important things to understand, guys, in these compensation agreements, okay? Required disclosures regarding compensation. Brokers may not represent to a customer that their brokerage services are free or available at no cost unless they will receive no financial compensation from any source of those services. Brokerages acting for buyers may not receive compensation for brokerage services from any source that exceeds the amount or rate agreed to in the agreement with the buyer. If a brokerage will receive compensation from any source, the agreement must specify and conspicuously disclose the amount and or rate of compensation the brokerage will receive or how the amount will be determined. So basically what this means is the amount of pay that your real estate agent is going to get needs to be decided ahead of time. It needs to be decided when you list your house, if you're going to offer a commission to a buyer's agent or not, and it also needs to be decided in your buyer broker agreement when you hire a real estate agent to go look at properties as a buyer. This isn't going to be allowed to be some open-ended thing. Well, if we find this house, then you'll get paid this. If you find this house, then you'll get paid this. No, it has to be a set amount. Like it's going to be 2% no matter what. You know what I mean? Like something like that. Or a certain dollar amount. No matter which house you sell me, it's going to be $10,000. It has to be set in writing from now on. And you know, realistically, one thing I want to mention here, something I've mentioned before a while ago, is that buyers have always been the ones footing the bill for the commission, okay? This might seem like a new thing for you, but just keep in mind that sellers have always asked more for the property, typically to cover their real estate agent's commission, okay? So when you pay X amount of dollars for a house, you know, the seller has to pay that commission at closing, but they could have sold that house to you cheaper if they didn't have to pay that commission. And so that's why some people that are all for this change are saying, well, this is going to make real estate cheaper now because sellers can afford to sell their house for less if they don't have to pay the buyer's agent, which isn't actually going to be true because sellers are still going to ask market value, if not higher, for their house because that's what they always do. Just because they're saving money on the commission doesn't mean they're magically gonna ask less money for their house. But if you run across a deal as a buyer where they are not offering commission to the agent, because you can have them find this out. Say you find a house you like and the seller's not willing to pay any commission. It's all you, the buyer, according to the agreement you have set up with your agent, okay? Well, that gives you some leverage as a buyer to now offer that seller considerably less, considering that you are now going to have to foot the bill for that commission. So say the house is $300,000 and you agreed to pay your real estate agent $10,000 from the example before. Now you can easily lower your offer by at least $10,000, if not more, because the seller's not willing to pay that, but they're still asking the price as if they are willing to pay it. You follow? So this is actually going to be a good negotiating tool for you as the buyer if you want to buy a listing where the seller's not willing to pay. And if they say no, then you move on to the next listing, okay? And they're probably going to run into the same problem with the next buyer because most buyers, unless they're loaded and don't care about money, they're not going to want to pay full price for a house and be forced to pay their real estate agent the full commission as well because they never had to do that before. And I'm sure no one's going to want to do it now. I hope I could clear a lot of these things up for you guys and show you that real estate doesn't always go up in value. That is a big fat lie. You know, some of the hottest markets throughout the country, some of the most desirable places to live, San Francisco, New York, are literally crashing unbelievably right now, and it's probably just going to continue to get worse as the economy gets worse. So if you enjoyed this video, make sure you subscribe to the channel, and if you don't want to wait for my next video to come out, check out this one on the screen right over here, and I'll see you in the next one.